So I'm reading from Mom and Dad's autobiography called Called to Serve. And today we're going to read Chapter 3, Parents, Grandparents, and Family Life. Well, and Mom, if you have any thoughts or questions as we go, just stop me and I'm glad to talk about it. Loving parents and grandparents and a happy home life add much to the proper development of a child. Let me tell you about some of these special people in my life. My dad, Robert James Beringer. Dad was 6 feet tall and had straight dark hair.
6 feet.
6 feet, that's pretty tall, which turned out to a beautiful white as he aged. Always a clean living man, he never cursed, smoked, or drank alcohol, but he did have a weakness for hamburgers and a dish of ice cream nearly every night. Oh, a man after my own heart, a dish of ice cream. He liked new inventions and had fun attaching a microphone to our new floor model radio and speaking through it from his hideout in the kitchen to those of us in the living room. He enjoyed quiet pursuits like fishing, repairing washing machine motors, and working on cars. Airplanes and dirigibles. Is it dirigibles? Dirigibles?
Dirigibles.
Dirigibles fascinated him. Only lack of money prevented him from taking flying lessons. He took me with him to a spot outside of town where the airmail bag hung suspended on a rope to be snagged by a hook on a small plane.
Yeah.
Wow, that's cool.
We lived near the countryside.
Mm-hmm. Okay. He also liked to take us to fairs and carnivals. And on Sunday mornings, he read the funnies to me and helped me make composite figures from them using a special waxy paper and a tongue depressor. And so here's a photo of Robert James Beringer at age 20.
There.
So right there, that's your dad.
I can't see
I know.
without something.
Right here. Robert James Beringer, age 20.
Yeah.
Okay, usually pretty patient. My dad occasionally, quote, lost his cool, unquote. One time he was intent on whipping me, but I ran into my bedroom, locking both the entry and exit doors. Wow, you locked the door so you wouldn't get spanked from your dad. I escaped punishment, but there is still a crack in that door from the force he used trying to get in. Wow. Always willing to help friends and neighbors, he became known as a great fix-it man. He did not attend any church, but did not object to Mother taking us to the Adventist church on Saturday. He often repaired things at the church. At age 54, Daddy asked Elder W.C. Moffett, president of the West Pennsylvania Conference of Seventh-day Adventists, to baptize him. He returned an honest tithe and always faithfully studied the Sabbath school lesson each Friday evening with Mother. Daddy didn't care much for traveling, preferring to stay around home or going on Sundays to visit relatives in nearby cities.
That meant me?
Well, so I'm assuming that you would go with your mom and dad to visit family when you were young and still lived at home. They took an occasional trip to the Atlantic Ocean or to Washington, D.C. to visit friends. When Dan, and I visited Europe on furlough...
No. Start again.
Okay. When Dawn, your husband,
yeah.
Diane, Dan, that's me, and I, that's you, visited Europe on furlough in 1971, Dad and Mother met us in Amsterdam for a tour of several countries. They both enjoyed that.
1971.
1971, I remember that.
I wonder if we ought to mark that.
So I would have been about 13 years old. We're okay, we don't need to mark it. However, Daddy would not have felt comfortable in making such plans himself. During World War II, Dad worked in a defense factory near Cannonsburg, Pennsylvania. After the war, he worked 28 years for Associated Theaters in Washington as a moving pictures projectionist, retiring in 1973. After only 6 years of retirement, he died peacefully at home at the age of 74.
74.
So I have a memory I have multiple memories about going to the theater with Grandpa and going up into the projection room and him loading up the film in the projector and starting it, and I'd watch the movie through a little window into the theater. So I remember that. I remember my Grandpa Beringer well. Okay, so the
And
next
he died at the age, what age?
74. So you are going to be 96 next month, and so you have already lived 22 years longer than your dad. Isn't that something? Wow, what an accomplishment. Okay, the next section is about my mother, your mother, Doris May Brownlee Beringer. Same name as you, except you're Doris Ann, and she was Doris May Brownlee Beringer. Mother read widely, played the piano and organ. Oh, I remember her playing the organ. She played beautifully, and the piano. Became an accomplished seamstress, knit her own suits, crocheted afghans for each of her children and grandchildren, and learned ceramics, quilting, and oil painting. I remember going down in the basement on Henderson Avenue, 185 Henderson Avenue, I think, Washington, Pennsylvania. And she had a kiln down there that she made her ceramics, and then she fired them in the kiln, baked them.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember doing that, and I think that she and I, made some things together. She became proficient in all the homemaking arts, including canning fruits and vegetables, wallpapering, and painting. Mother practiced thrift and good management. Above all, she dedicated her life to God and became a valued worker and good influence in her church. The major responsibility of raising 3 daughters fell on her because my dad kept so busy with his work. So the 3 daughters, you, Aunt Joan was next, and then Aunt Carol was next. She maintained a good...
What age did she die?
I think it's going to say here. I don't remember. In her 80s somewhere, 86 maybe. She remained a good stay-at-home mom during our growing up years, but later in life she worked at a department store sewing draperies, and at holiday time she baked pies at a pie shop. Oh, you know what?
What?
At the time you wrote this book, she was still alive. So you wrote this book in 2007. No, she was already gone by then. But it doesn't say here, what year that she died. Okay, so now the next section is your grandmother, Jessie Lillian Brownlee. Do you remember your grandmother?
Yeah.
I have wonderful memories of my grandmother Brownlee, an unselfish, conservative, and true Christian lady. Oh, before I go on, there was a photo here. So this is Doris Ann's parents in the 1960s. So there's my grandma and grandpa.
No.
See right here.
What good did that do?
I'm videotaping it, so then you can watch it some other time on the TV. Okay. Always willing to help those in need, she lived to bless others. Sometimes, though, her burden seemed too heavy to bear. One day, at a real frustration, she blurted out, "Oh, BS." She acted absolutely mortified when Mother told her what it meant. BS. Yeah, that's not very ladylike, huh? She grew flowers in her backyard, pale pink roses, snowball bushes, bleeding hearts, lilies of the valley, and peonies. She dearly loved her grandchildren.
Peony.
Oh, peonies. Peonies, okay. She dearly loved her grandchildren. When bedtime came, she sometimes promised us one of her chocolate cherries, which she dearly loved.
I remember that.
You don't?
I do.
You do remember getting chocolate cherries at bedtime. Okay.
If you're good. And get ready for bed. Oh.
Yep. And if you weren't good, what did she say? She said, pretty is as pretty does. And let me read this again. When bedtime came, she sometimes promised us one of her chocolate cherries, which she dearly loved, if we would be good. If we weren't good, her favorite saying was, pretty is as pretty does. I remember her home remedies, sassafras tea to drink, camphor and wool flannel around the neck for colds, onion poultices for congestion, Vicks vapor rub, mustard plasters,
Wow.
and castoria. A great cook.
What is castoria?
I have no idea. I've never heard of castoria before. A great cook, she made several loaves of bread at a time and delicious apple dumplings. I loved them baked. I loved them steamed. I remember coloring the margarine at her kitchen table. A capsule of food coloring in the bag of white margarine and a lot of squeezing turned it all yellow. She canned as well. Fruits, vegetables, pickles, tomato ketchup, and chili sauce. She always wore an apron while doing housework. We made root beer too. In a big crock, we mixed Hires root beer extract, sugar, and water. Then,
And I took it downstairs and stored it in the
Okay.
basement.
okay. Then cover the crock with a plate for several days before the bottling and capping process, then stored it downstairs in the basement. We could hardly wait to open the first bottle. Grandma wore her long hair in a bun. She worked too hard taking care of others until she suffered a stroke and died in 1938 at the age of 63.
Wow.
Wow. So I'm going to be 63 next month.
Mm.
And so my great grandmother died about the same age as I am now. Wow. She will be one of the first persons I plan to look for when Jesus comes and takes us all to heaven. Okay, so here's a photo of grandparents Marshall and Jessie Brownlee not long before her death in 1938, right here.
He was a big man.
Yeah. Okay, so there is the photo. My grandfather, Marshall Haney Brownlee. Grandpa worked as a roller in a tin mill, a hard, hot job. I remember him carrying a large metal lunch bucket every day. He loved music and played the tuba in the mill band.
Oh, I don't remember that.
Okay. One day he bought a player piano on credit and had it delivered to the house. How we children loved to play it. The paper rolls had perforations in them that made the keys play when we pumped the pedals with our feet. Grandma had to worry about squeezing out enough money for the payments. My grandpa talked a lot and loved a good argument, especially about politics or religion. Oh my, okay. He knew the Bible but didn't attend church. He sometimes quoted Bible texts to his own advantage, trying to prove it was okay to eat unclean food as outlined in the book of Leviticus. He quoted Matthew 15:11 many times in my hearing, saying that, quote, not what goes into the mouth defiles a man, but what comes out of the mouth, this defiles a man, unquote. Despite his shortcomings, Grandpa loved children.
That's amazing, having quotes like
Mm-hmm.
that.
So you must have remembered him saying that when you wrote this autobiography. You wrote this half of this book. Despite his shortcomings, Grandpa loved children. When Mother cleaned me up, he invariably bought me a big 5-cent ice cream cone. He had a hearty laugh and loved to tease his little Buggy, as he called me. He called you Buggy?
Buggy.
Is that because you bugged him? You bugged other people?
Yes, I was little.
Yeah. I remember the big square heat register in the floor of their living room over the coal furnace. It was such fun to stand there and watch my skirts billow out from the rising heat. The soft coal was dumped near a cellar window, then needed to be shoveled into the coal bin in the basement. Grandpa loved a garden, and it helped the budget too. When he ran out of space in the backyard, he found a plot out in the country. I often went with him to help water, weed, and pick the produce. He owned an automobile but left the driving to his sons. Sometimes Mother drove our car to bring home the harvest. My love for gardening,
Bring home the harvest.
yeah, of whatever that they were growing in the fields. My love for gardening came from Grandpa. His addiction to drinking alcohol only added to Grandma's stress level.
And he had a I was trying to think.
When, well, if you think of it, then just interrupt me. When under its influence, he became quite argumentative.
He could argue.
When he drank too much alcohol.
And I think he learned that when he had the job.
Okay. Perhaps the habit started with one social drink with his work buddies. Sometimes that's all it takes. I pray earnestly that none of my children or grandchildren will ever even taste an alcoholic drink. This evil habit destroys lives. Grandpa put on weight and suffered from skin cancer and also heart trouble in his advanced years.
Skin cancer.
He sold his home to my parents. They remodeled it into a 2-family house, and we moved into the first floor. He died in 1946 at the age of 74. So wow, you have outlived him by 22 years. And lies next to Grandma in the Washington Cemetery in Pennsylvania. Okay, so
She was so sweet.
There's 2 photos.
His wife.
There's one photo of Grandpa's car, Joan in the center, and Doris Ann at the right with their cousins Robert, Billy, and Shirley. So I'll show this to the camera. And then the second photo is of 185 Henderson Avenue. Doris's parents purchased the Brownlee family home at 185 Henderson Avenue, Washington, Pennsylvania. Her mother lived there until her death in 1992. So there's 185 Henderson Avenue.
My mother.
Your mother died in 1992, so that means Andy was born. Andy was born in '89, so he was about 3 years old when my grandma Beringer died, and Alex was about 1 year old because Alex was born in 1991 and she was born in 1992. And we have a photo of your mother, my grandma Beringer, and Alex's great grandma Beringer. We have a photo of her holding Alex. That was very special. Okay, holidays. Mother made holiday time special, even though they lived on a quite limited income during World War II. She always managed to have some sort of party for birthdays, and at Easter time we colored eggs and had Easter baskets. Around Memorial Day, Mother took us to the Washington Cemetery to help clean up family graves and plant flowers. On the holiday itself, we had a family picnic or visited relatives. We celebrated the 4th of July with a picnic or a Brownlee Beringer family reunion at the Washington Park and set off sparklers and sometimes other fireworks such as pinwheels, strings of firecrackers, or rockets. Thanksgiving was family time. Mother stuffed a turkey or a chicken, and we had dressing, mashed potatoes, and gravy, Waldorf salad, celery stuffed with cream cheese, candied yams, cranberries, and pumpkin pie. Okay, so I have a thought about this. So you always wanted me to be a vegetarian. So I remember going to Aunt Carol's house at Thanksgiving, and she had turkey, and I had some turkey, and I liked the turkey. And you did not like it that your sister Carol got me started on eating turkey. I still eat turkey to this day. Okay. We look forward to Christmas all year, even if we didn't receive many gifts. Mother always dressed up our dolls, made new clothes for them and us, and bought us new slippers and Sabbath shoes. Daddy brought home a tree on Christmas Eve, or sooner if the price was right, and they trimmed the tree after we went to bed when we were small. It always looked better when I got old enough to add the aluminum foil icicles myself, because I had the patience and the time to put them on one by one. I remember when we lived in Singapore, our Christmas tree was a tin foil tree. All of it was tin foil. So it had rods of
Medical rods?
no, sorry, metal rods with little strips of tin foil that came off of it. Okay. We girls did our Christmas shopping at G.C. Murphy's 5 and 10. Things like books, bath salts, evening in Paris perfume, and stationery. Mother usually baked cookies and made fudge, divinity, mints, etc. What's divinity? Do you have any idea?
I couldn't make it now. I don't know.
But is it a sweet?
Yeah.
Okay. Then she fixed up little boxes or plates of goodies for special people. We delivered them before Christmas. On Christmas Eve, we children took our little gifts to our friends. We read the story of the Nativity and hung our stockings before going to bed. On Christmas morning, after opening our presents and having a breakfast of cinnamon rolls, hot chocolate, and fruit, we visited our friends to see their gifts. Ruthie Doak's family always left the price tags on everything, so the recipient wouldn't have to guess the value of each gift. That custom, quote, turned me off, unquote. When Daddy's mother asked him as a small child what he wanted for Christmas, he replied, "Oh, just a tin
Tin full of candy."
You remembered that. That is the exact quote. "Oh, just a tin tan tull of tandy." Mother always made sure to place a can. Tull. Full. Yeah. Like just a tin can full of candy. But he said, "Oh, just a tin tan tull of tandy." Mother always made sure to place a can of hardtack candy for him under the tree. It doesn't take a lot to make a happy Christmas. We were content with a new book like the Bobbsey Twins or a book of paper dolls, Princess Elizabeth and Margaret Rose, Shirley Temple, or the Dion quintuplets. Major events.
Dion.
Dion.
They were European, I think.
I don't know. Major events loomed ahead in my teens: a new sister, high school, and World War II. So that is the end of chapter 3 of Doris's part of the autobiography called To Serve.